What's up guys, Graylan Stewart here with another video. So today is video 3 of 3 of my free step-by-step wholesaling real estate training, okay? So this is completely free, but if you haven't watched video 1 and video 2 yet, you definitely have to do that first, okay? So we've got them in the descriptions right now, so just click on those. You want to watch them in order so it all makes sense. This is a 3-part series, and this is video 3 of 3. So here we go. All right, guys, here we go. So this is the free wholesaling real estate training video 3 of 3. Okay. So the first thing we got to do, now that you know all the basics, you know needs versus wants and all those things, okay? You know how to negotiate with sellers now. We got to do your why, okay? What is your why? Now, you might think this is silly, but it's super important, okay? So why do you want to wholesale real estate? Why do you want to change your life? What is your why, okay? Most people list their family, but why do you want to do what you want to do? Why do you want to make a lot of money in real estate? And those are the things you got to ask yourself, because keep in mind, it's your mindset first, but then you have to have a why. Like for me personally, my why was I wanted to retire my wife because she's a super hard worker, super stressful job and all those things. And that was really my ultimate why. Obviously, I wanted to retire her, but I wanted to do it for my whole family as well. And I just want to make a difference, be able to help friends and family out and that kind of thing, okay? So how many of you want to start doing this full time? That's the real question. And then have you put a limit as far as time goes on that, okay? So a lot of people start out as doing this as a side hustle, which is great. You probably want to keep your 9 to 5 at first until you get this really going strong. Or, in my case, I started out full time right away because I had a marketing business that was kind of running on its own, and I could afford to do it. I had good income coming in to where I could focus 100% of my time, at least at that time, probably 95% of my time on wholesaling real estate. But so that's key. Have you put a time limit on it? Okay. So if you're starting this out part-time or as a side hustle, have a goal in mind. Like, okay, I'm going to do this part-time, bust my butt for a year straight. But after a year, I'm quitting my job. So I think that's important to make sure you have your goals written down and put a time restriction on that. Otherwise, who knows, have a goal so you can try to reach that goal. Like, I'm going to do this in X amount of days or X amount of months or years or whatever it is. Okay. So also, I want to go over, like, having the right tool is the only way to be successful in anything that you do. And here's why. Okay. So what tools do you actually need to cut the grass, to cut down a tree? I know these are silly questions, but really think about it. So obviously you can cut the grass probably with scissors, right? And you could probably even cut the grass with a weed eater, but are those necessarily the right tools for the job? Probably not, especially when there's a mower, right? There's a lawnmower that you can use. Or even if you have like acreage, is a push mower the right tool for that? Probably not. Maybe a riding mower or even a tractor. Okay, you kind of get my gist. Even to cut down a tree, yeah, you could probably cut down a tree with a hacksaw. Might take you hours and hours or days or weeks even, because that's crazy. Or you could get a chainsaw and cut it down pretty quick, right? So does anybody know what a confused mind actually does? Just a guess before I reveal what the answer is. What does a confused mind do? Maybe you've guessed it. Nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. So that's why it's important, in my opinion, to have an organized business, because an organized business is a profitable business. So how do you stay organized? When I first started, I used a yellow tablet, but I was very organized in that method. And I did have a script that I compiled on my own, which I've told you in the last video. And then on the back of that script actually has like my ARVs and, what is the property worth on these different sites and that kind of thing. It just gives me something to go off of, So every single seller had a piece of paper that I was super anal about. I actually kept a little folder of all of those different people. So that was kind of my organization at that point. But I will tell you now, our secret weapon is our softwares that we use, hands down, okay? So let's talk about getting leads now. All right, so getting leads. Obviously, you can do driving for dollars, which what we talked about on those 13 motivations when you're looking at those vacant houses and all the different signs of a vacant property. And when you're going out and about and you're looking for those properties, that's called driving for dollars because you're physically driving in your car, writing those addresses down of all those distressed looking houses with the tall grass or, the obvious distress on the house or the tarps on the roof or the overstuffed, mailboxes, etc. So another way to get leads, obviously, is buying lists. And I've told you before, datagamechanger.com, that's PropStream. That's my affiliate link. If you want to go there, utilize that, great. I'm not trying to sell you anything, and I could care less if you go there or not. I'm simply providing you the tool that I use on a day-to-day basis. Also, listsource.com. I've done a video on how to pull lists on ListSource. So it is a product that I use. And once again, I never promote anything that I don't personally use myself. So listsource.com is a great place to buy lists. There's multiple other places out there, but these are the two that I'm telling you about because these are the two that I actively use all the time, okay? So getting leads, you can do outbound marketing or inbound marketing, okay? So outbound marketing is what you hear a lot about, and which I do in my business as well, cold calling, okay? There's cold calling, text messaging, or ringless voicemail. All right, so cold calling, obviously, is picking up the phone and you're calling a specific list that you paid for, or you're calling a list that you did driving for dollars, okay? Now, keep in mind, once you have these lists, you do have to skip trace them to be able to find the phone numbers, okay? There's tons of different places out there to skip trace properties, but the bottom line is you need to get the phone number to be able to call or to be able to text message, which is also called SMS in this industry, or ringless voicemail is known as RVM, okay? So you have to actually have phone numbers to be able to do these methods, but that's outbound. That's more cold. All of these are cold. You're hoping for a callback, okay? So let's talk about some inbound marketing methods, okay? So you can do direct mail that we talked about before, and that's physically sending a mail piece out, whether that's a letter or a postcard, hoping that they'll give you a call back, okay, that they're interested in selling their property. Or you can do radio ads, you can do TV ads, you can do billboards, bandit signs. If you don't know what a bandit sign is, it's those signs that you see on the side of the road that says "We buy houses." They call them bandit signs because they're technically illegal pretty much everywhere, okay? Now, whether they enforce that or not is a different story. That's why bandit signs kind of are popular when people are starting out because it's easy. But you always want to kind of do it on a Thursday night or Friday night because the sign police don't work on the weekends, okay? These are usually city employees just out taking these signs up and throwing them away is what they do. So if you can put it out on a Thursday night or Friday night, you're hoping that it'll last the weekend at least when everybody's out and about looking at the signs, okay? Otherwise, they're probably going to get thrown away and they're not going to be there on Monday. Or you can do Facebook ads. I'm a believer in Facebook for sure. So Facebook is always good. PPC, which is known as Google AdWords. So that's real strong. And I do most of these marketing methods that we're talking about right here. I don't do TV or billboards, but I've done everything else. And I still do have a few bandit signs out there. And then referrals is always huge. Like, who do you know? Like we talked about in the last video. Who's in your inner circle or people in your inner circle that may know someone that has one of those 13 distresses? So referrals are huge. And even after you do a deal with a seller, asking them for referrals is huge too, okay? So let's talk about organizing your leads. So this is where our softwares come into play. And again, I'm not promoting any softwares at all out there. I'll probably mention some that I use, but I could care less if you use the ones that I use. I'm just telling you what we do. And I do feel that a software, once you get going, it's not necessary at first. And because like I said, I mean, I did several $100,000 on a yellow tablet before I ever even had any kind of systems. Okay, but organizing leads, it'll definitely help you. But here's how we track our leads. We track leads through 5 different stages. Okay, so here they are. Obviously, our acquisition and lead manager. Sometimes this is the same position. Sometimes people have this as 2 different positions. In my business, I use the same person. It's an acquisition manager, but they're also, the lead intake manager, if you will. But most likely, what you have now, is these type of leads. They're just leads. Okay, these are leads to run numbers, gauge motivation, follow up, etc. Okay, they're not really anything else besides simply just a lead at this point. But those leads quickly can turn into opportunities, which the acquisition manager happens. They're the ones that follow up with these opportunities. Okay, that's why some people have these on 2 different people doing this job, because the lead intake manager can just kind of, basically they're kind of going through the leads to figure out what can become an opportunity. But I like to have my acquisition managers do that for now, and that could change in the future. But for now, my acquisition manager does that. Okay, so once they actually see that somebody might need to sell, then that becomes an opportunity. Now they're trying to set the appointment. Okay, that's the main goal initially, whether you're doing that in person or by phone. Now, I will tell you, in person is much more effective, because if you're right in front of someone, obviously you can read body language, you can kind of see their movements and actions, and you can hear their tonality, and just in person's always better. They see a face to face, right in front of them, a person right in front of them. And in my business, we do by phone. We're 100% virtual. And many companies do it that way. It's definitely more effective in person if you can do that, but it's not as scalable, which is why I chose the phone version. Okay, so acquisition managers, obviously their main goal is to set the appointment, but then follow up is everything. I've talked about this time and time again. If you're not following up, people, you're not going to get anywhere at all, period. Now, not just short-term follow-up, but long-term follow-up is key, because remember, not everybody's ready to go right now. So you got to follow up for the long haul. Okay. You want to know how you can turn 80% of your leads into deals? I'll show you. Okay. I've done this little PDF, or this little sales stat that I'll show you real quick. It's really cool. And these are just stats that are kind of well known in the sales industry in general. So sales stats here. 48% of salespeople never follow up with the prospect. Did you see that word? Never. 48% of salespeople never follow up. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. Now, keep in mind, what we do is sales. Make no doubt about that. This is a sales business, because we are actively pursuing motivated sellers out there, and we're selling them on the idea of trusting us into buying their property. Okay, so it is a sales game with the seller, and then you're selling that property to a buyer. So anyways, 25% of these salespeople only make a second contact and stop. 12% of those salespeople make 3 contacts and stop, and only 10% of those salespeople make more than 3 contacts. Now that's huge, guys, because that just tells you right there, your competition is not as good as you, because most of them are in this 90% right here. Okay. Now we want to be in this 10% to where we're the ones making 3 contacts or more. But check this out. This is pretty strong. 2% of sales are actually made on the first contact. So it's super rare, right? Like the first time you call someone or the first time they call you, you actually get the deal under contract. It's rare, 2%. And that's true, because we've done hundreds of deals at this point, and I can only remember one that I think we've done on the first time. It just is a lucky deal, right? So anyway, 3% of sales, sorry for the misspelling there, 3% of sales are made on the second contact. So it's still pretty rare. It goes back into that, that's why you got to follow up more. And then 5% of sales are made on the third contact. So as you can see, your chances get better and better as you go, okay? 10% of sales are actually made on the fourth contact, and then a whopping 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So that right there if y'all don't understand that, that shows you that follow up is everything, because if you can actually follow up, then you're going to be huge. You're going to be greatly successful, because 80% of those sales are done and made after the 5th to 12th follow up. So that's key. All right. So back to these stages that we keep our leads in. Track your leads to these 5 stages. Okay. So transaction coordinator. So now these are deals that are won. So after you have, all of this, okay, let's go back to this. We set the appointment, we're following up, and now we're following up like crazy long term. And we're actually negotiating. Sorry, we have to back up a little bit. We're negotiating with the seller. Obviously, they're engaged. We're trying to come to an agreement on price at this point. Then eventually, we're closing that deal, okay? So once that deal is closed, the acquisition manager's job is done. Now it goes to our transaction coordinator, and these are actually the deals that we won, okay? So obviously, the stages for them is they want to send the new contract to the title company or attorney. Different states are different. Some use attorney, some are title. Some states do both, okay? And then they're going to talk to the seller about the whole process of what we do, okay? So they're just setting their expectations like, hey, I'm the transaction coordinator for the X company or whatever it is. And, I'm going to be your go-to person now throughout the process. Here's what it looks like, blah, 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 okay? So they're talking to the seller initially, right away. Then they're waiting for dispositions to sell the deal. Now, once dispo sells the actual deal, transactions taken over again. Now they're talking to the buyer about the process. Now, keep in mind, you always have to follow up with the title company, the seller, and the buyer every few days. And this is key. Trust me. We've learned the hard way that, you can't always rely on other people to follow up with you. That's why we have to be proactive as a transaction coordinator to follow up with the title company, just letting them know, say, hey, we're still here. How's the title work coming along? Just keeping them reminded that, hey, we're trying to get this done quickly, right? And the same thing, you're following up with that seller, like, hey, Mr. Seller, everything is still going good. We're still waiting on title, blah, blah, blah. You're just kind of letting them know where you're at in the process. And then the buyer, obviously, initially you're introducing yourselves. I'm the transaction coordinator. I'm going to be your go-to person helping you get this to the closing table. And I'll just tell you that the title company is still working on the title and the abstract or whatever else, okay? So they're just communicating. You have to communicate often or you could lose the deal. Because if you're waiting a week or two, then the seller gets mad and they're like, oh, well, I signed a contract with someone else because I hadn't heard from you. I thought you weren't going to close. Or the buyer's like, oh, well, I assumed, something happened because you haven't talked to me in 2 weeks. Whatever it is, issues can arise if you don't have open communication. So definitely that's our policy in my business. You have to be talking. The transaction coordinator has to communicate with all 3 of these, title, seller, and buyer, every few days. No excuses. Otherwise, things could go awry, okay? Now the disposition manager, exit strategy is their whole goal, right? How are we going to dispo the deal? Are we wholesaling this? And if so, they're going to be evaluating this deal now, okay? So they're going to comp these properties just like the acquisition manager did initially when they got the deal, because they're the ones that ultimately decide how much we're going to sell this property for, okay? So they're going to post the deal on Facebook. So you want to look for local real estate investor Facebook groups, okay? In your local community, you could just search in the search bar on Facebook, real estate investors, your city, or wholesaling real estate, your city, things like that. So find those groups, and then you want to post with great ad copy without the address, okay? So you're going to post your deal on there, and you want to do something like, hey, I've got a great off-market property. The ARV is 200. We're selling it for 100. Please DM me for questions. Something like that. You don't want the address because that's when people could be snakes and try to steal your deal. That's why it's important to just be in the loop with your buyer and seller at all times, but your seller especially, just so that they know you're still here. We're doing this thing, right? Anyways, then the dispo manager, they email blast our buyers list, okay? Now you can use MailChimp, constant contact, click send. We use Investor Lift. I've told you that before. It's dispogamechanger.com. That's why we use Investor Lift, because it truly has every buyer in the nation. So we choose to do that. We do email blast our buyers through that. But after that, our goal is to call all the God mode buyers in Investor Lift. What God mode buyers are, let's just say you have a property, let's just say it's in Detroit, Michigan. Now, rather than just trying to email blast everybody in Detroit, and you probably don't have a list in Detroit anyways, that's why we use Investor Lift, because you might have some buyers out there. But nevertheless, God mode buyers in Investor Lift will actually show you all of the flips that have happened in that immediate area. So if you want to go to datagamechanger.com, that's great. That's my affiliate link for Investor Lift. You can do that. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't really care if you use it or not, but I'm just telling you what we use every single day, all day, every day, especially our dispo manager. But even our acquisition manager uses that, because if you got a deal in a small town and you don't know if there's buyers there or not, our acquisition manager can actually type that into Investor Lift just to see if there's deals there, because it's going to show you all the deals. That's why these are called God mode. It's all these deals in that area. If there's no deals there, we're not locking the contract up. But if you're in a big city, then you're probably going to have buyers. But anyways, we call the God mode buyers. So that's her kind of her checklist. She's going to run the comps, post a deal on Facebook, email blast the deal, and then call the God mode buyers. And that's what she does. So then once we're actually under contract to sell, she actually sold the deal to an end buyer. We're just waiting for the closing while following up. Keep in mind, we're still following up with the buyer, as the disposition manager, and the acquisition manager is still talking to the seller occasionally, but pretty much they're out of it. And our TC, our transaction coordinator, is really the one communicating with everybody. Okay. So we're just waiting for the closing, and we're still following up. And then we get to payday. That's the best part. That's what this is all about, right? We finally made it to the finish line. We got that big check that we've been wanting, that big payday, whether it's 5, 10, 15, or 20,000. Could be $50,000 payday. Who knows? Whatever it is, we got to the finish line, and now we just want to repeat this whole process, okay? Obviously, that's the whole goal in doing this. We want to make a profit, right? So hopefully that was beneficial right there. But now let's go over how we actually comp these properties, okay? Because that's important. If you don't know how to comp, then you're kind of stuck. So comping out properties accurately within your CRM is key for us, because this saves us a ton of time. Now, I already showed you how to find the ARV earlier, but when you're comping those, that was kind of doing 2 in 1. I showed you those, how to comp those as well. So anyways, quickly analyzing these deals with automation is key for us, and we can just get through the leads a lot quicker. So our CRM currently just kind of spits out these comps for us, and then comp using the normal websites, obviously is tedious. The websites that we talked about earlier, redfin.com, realtor.com, Zillow.com, and then PropStream, it is tedious. It takes a lot of time, and it's still subjective. Even after you go through all that, you don't even know for sure exactly what you've done. But we've just decided to automate that stuff. We get all that done through our softwares that we use. We've used Podio forever. We've built that out. I've spent $30,000 on Podio, and we actually just bought into a new system recently that we're going to be utilizing very soon. We're not fully up and running yet, but that does all that for us too. That's the whole point of having softwares, to make your life easier. So then you can also store your contract within the system for easy access. Now you can use your CRM to do this. You can use Google Drive, or you can use Dropbox. I'm a huge fan of Dropbox. I've used it in my marketing company for years and years, for 10 years now. So we still actively use that. But also we store them in our CRM too, just so we have a double check. We've got them in both places. So anyway, if I haven't made this point clear, systems run businesses, okay? Now, don't get it twisted, because people run the system. So you have to have really good people to run these systems. Now, CRMs are basically an all-in-one marketing automation organization tool built for flipping houses, specifically wholesaling real estate and keeping track of everything. That's what we use it for, okay? Now, the wholesale purchase and sale agreement. Let's check this out. So I wanted to show you this real quick, just so you get an idea of what these actually look like, okay? Who else gives you this stuff for free? I do, right? So this exact contract right here made me probably $1 million in wholesaling fees. This exact contract. Now you're welcome to pause this and copy this word for word if you want to. I don't care. So this exact contract probably made me about $1 million. So if you want to check that over, pause it, rewind, do whatever you got to do. There it is for you, okay? So it's super simple. It's not rocket science. It's not 15 pages like a realtor's contract would be. It's one simple page, okay? That's it. That's all you really need, okay? And now the assignment contract is just as easy, guys. We don't want to complicate this business. It's one page. This assignment contract has helped me make that $1 million. This exact assignment right here, okay? Yes, it does have your fee on there, blah, blah, blah. But that's why if your buyer is uncomfortable with you making, 10 or 15,000, it's probably the wrong buyer. But most of them are uncomfortable with you making 15,000 or more. That's when you just want to double close the deal. And there's a different contract for that. It's very much similar to your purchase agreement, but it's worded differently because it's more beneficial for you. So double closing is a little different contract, but 90% of the time you're going to use this assignment contract. So feel free to pause this, click the pause button, rewind, do whatever you got to do. If you want to copy this exact format right here, you can. So feel free. But here it is. So I gave you that for free. So that's really it, y'all. I showed you everything that I know about wholesaling real estate. It's obviously it's a pretty big overview. It's still not getting into the nitty gritty, but it gives you everything you need step by step to be successful and to go do this business. So now the question is, what's stopping you? So get it done. You have everything you need now between my 3 videos that I just did for you, from start to finish, step by step. You've got it all. So go out there and make a difference and change your life, change the trajectory of your potential future income and your family's life as well. So anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you. Thanks for watching. I hope it was beneficial. Hopefully you got value. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I just gave you tons of gold. So hit the subscribe button. It would really help me out and I appreciate it. So anyways, thanks a lot and I'll see you guys later. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully all of that made sense. If you watched all the videos in order, part 1, part 2, and part 3, I basically gave you everything you need step by step to learn how to wholesale real estate. So if you can't do it after that, then you probably might need a coach or maybe you should buy a course or something like that. But hopefully for most of you, that was enough information for you to actually go do a deal. So now take action. You've got everything you need. You've got the contracts. You've got step by step on how I do things in my business, and you can replicate that and duplicate it and do it yourself. So anyways, thanks again for watching. Definitely click the links below if you need to download those free scripts or contracts at all. And thanks a lot, and I'll see you in future videos.